Hi, I'm Shannon, and I'm a conflict resolution specialist. I teach conflict resolution and communication skills for everyday people like you and me who just want to create a little more peace and harmony in their lives. And just a quick note, everything I share here is for educational purposes only. It's not individualized advice, but I hope it gives you tools you can use in your own life. So I know that my field is in conflict resolution and communication, but today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about biology. There are several physiological changes that take place in our bodies when we enter into conflict, and those changes can actually escalate the conflict further, particularly if we're not aware of them. So today, I'll describe what those changes are, as well as a couple of strategies you can try to minimize any negative impacts those changes may be causing for you. Most conflicts start because one or more people perceive that there's a threat to their well-being in some way. Now, what people perceive to be a threat to their well-being varies greatly depending on the person and the situation. But in today's world, most of the conflict we have usually revolves around feeling a threat towards our values, needs, or identity. And while that is uncomfortable, it's not typically life-threatening. The problem is, our bodies are still programmed to respond to the conflict scenarios that many of our early ancestors faced, which often were life-threatening. So think of the classic example of facing down a hungry lion in the jungle. Now, fast forward to today, regardless of whether we're facing a truly life-threatening scenario or simply having an argument with our spouse about what temperature to set the heat at, our bodies respond in the same way. So let's walk through what actually happens in our bodies during a conflict, specifically our nervous systems. Once you perceive there to be a threat to your well-being, your amygdala becomes activated. Your amygdala sits deep in your brain and is responsible for threat detection. Once your amygdala detects a threat, that initiates your flight or fight response. That then causes your adrenal glands, which are two glands that sit on top of your kidneys, to start releasing adrenaline into your bloodstream. Now, this is not something that you choose to do or can control. Your body automatically does it. When this happens to me, I tend to experience some very clear physical signs, like a rapid increase in my heart rate and breathing. I often start to sweat a bit, and I feel like my hands and legs are shaking or vibrating slightly. You may have some of these symptoms as well, or experience different ones. Once your flight or fight response is activated, your brain also begins to divert blood to the arms and legs to get you ready for tasks like hitting or running. Again, think of trying to escape a lion. However, as the large muscles in the arms and legs receive more blood, that means the prefrontal cortex gets less blood. Your prefrontal cortex is a part of your brain that lies right behind your forehead and is responsible for higher level reasoning. When blood is diverted away from your prefrontal cortex and towards your arms and legs, that means your prefrontal cortex is not functioning as well, and many of your higher level reasoning and problem-solving skills are no longer available to you. Now, if you were running away from a lion, you don't need to do a whole lot of intricate, higher level reasoning in that moment. But if you're in the middle of an argument with your spouse, that's when it starts to become a problem. You essentially end up facing challenging conversations with the same intellectual skills available to a rhesus monkey. It has nothing to do with personality or character flaws, or even how smart you are. It's an automatic biological response. Your amygdala is in control. So the question is, when you find yourself in this situation, and we all do, what can you do about it? The key is to get your prefrontal cortex back in the game. The more active your prefrontal cortex is, the less active your amygdala is. So the first thing I recommend doing is slowing the moment. Again, we're not facing down lions here, so we can afford to do that. Slowing the moment could look like doing some breathing or grounding exercises. It could be taking a break from the situation. It could be expelling excess energy by going for a brisk walk. It can really be anything that you find calming. Next, I recommend naming what's actually happening and what you're feeling. There has been some research that suggests that naming an emotion can actually calm the amygdala, and putting feelings into words may activate a part of the prefrontal cortex that suppresses the area of the brain that produces distress. So once you have taken a moment or two to do something calming, try naming what's happening and any emotions you're feeling. Then you can ask yourself some orienting questions like, what actually matters most here? Or, what is my goal in this conversation? Finally, try shifting to a place of curiosity instead of assuming you know the other's intentions. Ask, what else could be going on here? Feelings of threat and curiosity often can't really coexist. So to give you a personal example of what this might look like, I recently did a mediation that involved an attorney who did not respect my time limits. I was very clear at the beginning of the mediation how much time we would have and when we would need to stop. I also provided time checks throughout the mediation so everyone would be aware of how much time we had left and could plan accordingly. Even so, this particular attorney kept insisting that I help her and her client negotiate further with the other party, even though we were over time, and I told her I had other obligations I needed to get to. So this scenario is certainly not anything like facing down a lion, but it still caused that same physiological response I described earlier. I remember I actually had a little trouble finishing typing up the paperwork for the mediation because my hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. So following the mediation, I knew I was going to need to take some steps to help me calm my nervous system, or else I would just be replaying the scenario in my head over and over again for several hours. The first thing I did was take a few moments to just sit quietly, breathe, and send myself compassion. I often do that by giving myself a little hug and acknowledging that I just went through something hard. This helped me feel calm enough that I could then name what happened. I said to myself, I'm feeling angry and annoyed because my boundary was not respected, and I am feeling that anger and annoyance in my body right now. Then I asked myself, what matters most here? For me, it was making sure I had a plan in place to prevent this from happening again. So I put together a little script for myself to say at the beginning of my mediations that explicitly lays out when negotiation will end, not just when the mediation will end, because they are slightly different. At this point, I was feeling much calmer, and I was able to get to a place of curiosity with this attorney. Instead of assuming that she was just being disrespectful and self-absorbed, I considered the possibility that this may just be a client and a cause that she really cares about and wants to fight for. Believe it or not, I think this last step is what helped me most not to ruminate about the situation later, because it was about repair. I may never know that attorney's true intentions in that scenario, but understanding that there may be other reasons for behaving as she did, other than that she was just out to get me, helps me move forward and be open to future interactions with this and other attorneys. So to wrap up, if you find yourself saying or doing things in conflict that don't reflect your best thinking, it's important to remember that this isn't a personal failure. It's biology. When your amygdala takes over, your body is doing exactly what it was designed to do, even if the situation doesn't actually require it. The work then isn't about being perfect or never getting activated. It's about noticing what's happening, slowing the moment, and gently bringing your prefrontal cortex back online. With practice, these small shifts can reduce escalation, help you recover more quickly, and allow you to engage in conflict in a way that's more aligned with your values and with compassion for yourself along the way. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, feel free to like, subscribe, or share with someone who might need it. And remember, small shifts in how we communicate can create big shifts in our relationships. I'll see you in the next video.